Welcome to Business Nigeria on TVC News. I am Yemisi Lanre Ido. Well, our focus today is on the past budgets, and it is a waiting assent of the executive, but many investors are still worried about the delay in the passage of that budget. But just before we come discussing this, let's bring you some news. The federal government plans to get fresh investment from more than 190 investors from 40 key countries and sectors of the economy. Between January 2017 and March this year, Nigeria recorded a total investment commitment of $83 billion. Executive Secretary of Nigeria's Investment Promotion Commission, Yewande Sadiku, says the commission has collaborated with the state to enable it monitor investment inflow into the country. And she says the commission is working with key stakeholders to see more Nigerians invest in the country and ensure proper tracking. And still on wooing investors, Minister of Communications Adebayo Shitu says the government is moving to review tax laws to make Nigeria investor-friendly. The minister has called for partnerships and collaboration in the area of information and communication technology between countries with similar growth experiences. The government and India are forging a closer relationship in order to accelerate ICT growth in the country as well as boost the two countries' economies. Indian exports to Nigeria have increased by 25%, and the country has invested more than $10 billion in the growth of the Nigerian economy. And back to our focus of the day now. After 6 months in Parliament, the 2018 budget was finally passed last week. While lamenting the gross economic implications for the delay, economic analysts now say the executive must hastily assent to the budget. Lara Folayo tells us more.
Nigeria's 2018 budget has just been passed by the legislature. Economic analysts say the spending plan's delayed passage is not good for economic growth.
There's economic slowdown in the economy, and it's not the best thing, especially as we are now moving into an election year. They actually need to keep the spend up so that the recovery would accelerate. The delayed passage is always a festering sore in our macroeconomic relations, in the sense that the government plays a very large part on our economy. Not because of the size of the budget. It's a very small budget. It's only 9 trillion. We expect about 20 trillion for the size of the economy. But it's because certain activities of government, for example, capital expenditure, stimulates all other sorts of expenditure, like private sector engagement, like loan, borrowed money, where government has to put down 15%. So it's not just about government's project, it's about the fact that it's catalytic. So when there is a delay, it hurts the economy, because it makes people feel that less than 1% of our population that are in civil service and public service consume 70% of our resources and couldn't care less. As long as their salaries are being paid, then nothing happens.
Since 1999, we have not been able to implement up to 60% of the budget. That's a problem. And that is going to affect the economy adversely, in the sense that, other sectors of the economy which are dependent on the budget, of course, like the private sector, will be affected. And that will have a ripple effect on unemployment, on production, and other areas of the economy. If you don't spend the budget, that means you cannot do your capital project. I think we have a capital project of about 3-point-something billion in the budget. Now we're half here now. That includes a lot of bridges and a lot of projects they said they are going to do, which we all need, infrastructure. Now, if you don't even sign the budget into law in the 5th or 6th month, how are you then going to be able to meet up to this capital project? That means you're going to move these projects to next year's budget. And this has been the series of events that has overtaken the Nigerian budget since the 1999 during Obasanjo's tenure, and is still being experienced now.
The expenditure plan was increased by over 500 million naira to 9.1 trillion naira. Economic watchers are not very comfortable with the new figure and say the increase should be properly scrutinized.
I call upon the executive and the authority that is in charge of vetting the budget to check what does the increment constitute, so that we cannot just, I know there has been history of budget padding. We don't want that. We understand that there's a lot of unemployment in the country, a lot of areas in the economy that needs to be attended to. We look at the promise that was made that, you know, those that are unemployed will be given social support, will be put on welfare. Is that what this increment is about? Is it going to support a critical sector area of the economy? If not, then I think it should not be accented to. So I call on the authorities that is charged with the responsibility of overseeing the budget to make sure that this increment is made public, and also to vet it. If it's not something that is going to support the economy, then it should not be included at all.
Nigeria is now being advised to put urgent steps in place that will prevent budget passage delays and also proper implementation of the country's budgets. They also advised the executive to quickly assent to the budget.
If you want to help economic growth, if you want to take Nigeria out of recession, which we're out of recession, and you want us to grow very well, if you want there to be jobs, if you want there to be manufacturing and production in the economy, and you want to uplift agriculture, you have to start passing the budget on time. You have to pass the budget, whatever it takes. Use your executive power on the legislator, or encourage the legislators to pass the budget, to pass the budget on time. We should not play politics with the budget, because the budget is like the motherboard for all other ships. It's the mothership. From there, other sectors of the economy take money, and it filters down to the economy. So that is the mothership that supplies to other boats. So it is important this budget is passed on time to support the various sectors of the economy.
The next budget, they're all in election mode. So the issue actually is that the Assembly has committed itself to more rigorous monitoring and evaluation. So that is good, oversight. But I say, but you don't need to say that now, because over last year, the National Planning Commission has now started doing quarterly monitoring report. And we've been asking them to do the quarterly monitoring report and publish it, so that oversight can take place. So that by the time your budget arrives, there would have been 3 quarters of oversight. But it was the same Assembly that we are inventing all sorts of reasons for not going to do oversight. They say no money. Well, what do you mean by no money? Your money is from statutory transfer. So you do have your budget. But I don't know what other money they're looking for. But anyway, the fact is that they need to do that to make sure that there is spend on this budget.
Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari presented the 8.6 trillion naira budget before the National Assembly in November last year. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, after the break, economic analyst Emeka Obiareri joins me via Skype to discuss this delay in the assent to the budget. Yes, the government is planning to woo investors and also make the environment investor friendly. We'll discuss all that when we return. You're watching Business Nigeria, and the focus of discussions today is the passage of the budget, but still being delayed due to the assent by the executive. And joining me to talk more about this is economic analyst Emeka Obiareri. Joins me via Skype. Many thanks for your time, Mr. Obiareri.
Thanks, Mr. for having me.
Yes, let's begin this way. The federal government plans to get fresh investments from more than 190 investors from 40 countries in key sectors of the economy. And to be able to do that, one of the things investors look at is the enabling environment. Government plans to make the environment enabling for businesses to thrive. Yes, the budget has been delayed for about 6 months before it was passed, but now another delay waiting assent from the executive. First off, let me ask you, what do you think is responsible for this delay, knowing that the chairman of the committee that's talking about Ganduje said the executive is aware of the increment that was made into the budget?
Let me see. The delay, as usual, has to do with the usual challenges that we have in Nigeria between the executive arm of government and the legislature. And I will tell you this, Yemisi, this is almost going to the 6th month in the fiscal year 2018. This is almost a week after the budget was passed, after so much delay. The Senate president told us that they discussed it with the executive before they passed it. Now, even let us look at it. This is nothing but a budget of consolidation of sharing. I've always maintained this. An economy that is requiring so much urgent needs for us to transform our infrastructure. An economy that has an infrastructure development master plan of about $3 trillion, 915 trillion naira over the next 30 years. An economy that requires urgent investments, capital investment about $100 billion sustained year on year over the next 30 years, even to bring us to the level of the second world country, is still struggling to sign a paltry budget of 9.1 trillion. And of course, it's a budget of sharing. If you look at the budget overhead, only about 2.8 trillion, $7 billion have been earmarked for capital expenditure. The bulk of the budget is just to take care of the larger-than-life profligate living of less than 1% of Nigerian population, the political class and their collaborators in the civil service. That is how where we have found ourselves. I do not even have any belief in this budget. Let me tell you, Yemisi, over the last 40 years, from 1960 now, what we have been doing is just this annual ritual of preparing sharing arrangement between the politicians, political office holders, and the civil servants. If we truly want to build this country, you just mentioned here that the federal government said that they are expecting 190 investors in different sectors of the economy. We have been hearing about this over the last 3 years. Where are those investors? What policies, what programs, what things, what the fiscal and monetary policies have the federal government of Nigeria put in place sustainably to give the so-called investors the comfort to invest in Nigeria? Which investor will invest in an economy that 6 months down the line, the legislature, the executive are still bickering on what to do to pass a paltry budget that is just geared at perpetuating poverty in the land? It is such a very pathetic situation.
All right, let me come in, Mr. Obiariri. Let me come in here now. Yes, let's talk about the technicalities involved. The NBS just released the GDP rate for the first quarter of 2018 at 1.95%, just very slight expansion from the fourth quarter 2017 at 1.92% thereabout. And with this budget that's been delayed, of course, we'll know that there's going to be a lot of attendant implications that come with it, especially when it comes to the capital vote for the budget. But how much can we do? Because we could see that it was just slight expansion in the GDP, and a lot needs to be done. After recession, we exited recession. A lot needs to be done to grow the economy. But with this time, after the budget has been passed, how much can be achieved within this fiscal year?
Let me see. Quarter on quarter, the budget went down. As at the last quarter, we recorded 2.11% GDP growth. As at the first quarter of 2018, we've lost over 0.15% in terms of the productivity of the economy. And if you look at the report of the NBS, the largest sector of our economy, the service sector, actually regressed rather than growing. Let me see, have we bothered to ask ourselves this question? We are growing at 1.95%. in an economy that has population growth, average population growth of 2.8% per annum. We are a huge joke. See, this economy, we are actually shrinking. Let us stop deceiving ourselves. There is no way an economy that has population growth of about 2.8% is having a GDP growth of 1.95%, and people are still thumping their chest. And we have continued to live in this kind of see, the problem we have is that we have refused to be focused. And if you look at even that 1.95% growth, it's driven mostly by the fact that the crude oil prices beyond the widest extension of $80 per barrel mark, and is today trading at about $78–80 per barrel. The 1.95% growth we have today is as a result of the providence, as a result of stroke of luck that went in our favor. Imagine for a second what will have happened if the oil price had gone south to $45 per barrel. By now we will have been singing non-dimittis for this country. And yet, those who are saddled with responsibility of governance of this country do not even understand the urgency, the imperative of the time to do what is needed. We have an economic recovery and growth plan that has not done anything except just parading the papers and leaving it.
So, Mr. Obiareri, are you saying this snail growth, let me put it that way, is not enough for Nigeria after a recession?
We are not growing. Let me see, we are not growing. It's not even a snail growth. Let me see, go and look at the variables. Go and look at the factors driving the growth. Let me see, the bulk of the growth of Nigeria economy is driven by the fact that oil prices are trading at $80 per barrel. Output has been ramped up to about 2.3 million barrels per day because of the graveyard peace that we currently have in that region. Let me see, there is nothing scientific. There is nothing creative in terms of economic, monetary and fiscal policy initiatives of the government of the day that is trying to show for that Nigeria is making it. The other day, you saw the report of IMF. IMF said that clearly that we are at a debt threshold, that we may not be able to service our debt. Let me see, over the last 3 years, we have grown our debt portfolio from 11 trillion naira to 21 trillion naira, a whooping $33 billion debt growth. What did we do with this? Mostly to fund consumption. Our revenue to debt services is practically, our debt service revenue is almost about 70%. And we keep on singing kumbaya. Let me tell you the obvious truth, and the truth that most people have refused to say to Nigeria. Unless we fundamentally restructure the very foundation of this economy, the very foundation of this country, unless we go back to that physical constitutional framework that helped us to thrive before 1966, this country is gradually marching to the way on the way to Somalia. Let me tell you, if you look at the contemporary countries in 1965, look at Singapore, look at Malaysia, look at Indonesia, look at Mexico, look at the level of poverty in these countries. In 1966, the level of poverty in Nigeria was almost at the same level with this country. Today in Nigeria, over 70% of Nigerians are below the poverty line. Indonesia have taken their people out. They are about 15%. Malaysia is 2.8%. In Singapore is 0.28%. Nigeria has continued to sink. What kind of growth are we talking about here? A growth that have seen those that live at the lowest base of the economic pyramid. The poverty index has grown from 45% in 2010 to about 69%, 72% today. MBS has the statistics, and we keep on deceiving ourselves. Let me tell us the truth. There is nothing that can be achieved with this budget of so-called consolidation of sharing and looting until we take a dramatic turn, a very sharp dramatic turn in overhauling the whole constitutional, political, socio-economic and governance architecture of this country. We will only end up every year involved in this ritualistic servicing of less than 1% of the Nigerian population.
Thank you, Mr. Nnemeka Obiareri, for your insight into this, talking about the delayed budget and the assent to the delayed budget. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
You're welcome, MC. God will help us.
Well, to other stories, the Central Bank of Nigeria says the framework for the $2.5 billion currency swap agreement with the People's Bank of China will be released next week. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele says the currency swap will ease pressure in the foreign exchange markets by the reduction in reliance in a third currency for trade settlements between Nigeria and China. Now, the framework for the deal, which will be released next week, will be the basis for an expanded economic relationship between Nigeria and China. Telecoms operators may soon increase tariffs on calls and data as they brace up for a new cybersecurity levy to be implemented by the Apex Bank. And this comes as CBN calls on banks to collect 0.005% levy on all electronic transactions into a national cybersecurity fund. Businesses affected by this charge include all telecommunications companies, internet service providers, banks, insurance companies, and Nigerian Stock Exchange. President of the Association of Telecommunications Companies of Nigeria, Olushola Teniola, said the implementation of the levy is ill-timed as telecom operators are currently battling with multiple taxation. And the African Development Bank in South Korea have signed a letter of intent to launch the Korea-Africa Energy Investment Facility. The partners signed the deal during the Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation meeting at the African Development Bank's annual meetings in Busan, South Korea. Under the deal, South Korea will provide African countries $600 million in both concessional and non-concessional loans over a period of 5 years. The FDB says the facility will support a full range of activities like preparation, construction and operations through a mix of financing and technical assistance. We're still bringing you updates on the smuggled poultry products. More than 900 cartons have been destroyed by operatives of the Customs Federal Operations Unit, Zone A in Lagos. And this brings the number of the smuggled frozen poultry intercepted by the command between January and April to more than 7,500 cartons with a duty-paid value of over 40.5 million naira. The area comptroller, Mohammed Uba, maintains that the ban is still in force. He stated that all seized frozen poultry products are destroyed to safeguard the public from consuming dangerous goods. The latest seizure has a duty-paid value of over 5 million naira.
These 917 cartons, which we have seized along with Joro axis, is worth 5.5 million naira. That is the value of these products. So it is because of health reasons that these products must be banned. It has been banned, and we have to bury this and burn it so that people will not go and take and be eating it. It's in Schedule 3 of the Common External Tariff. It's not allowed. It's banned, and it's banned for health reasons.
Steady oil prices movements have been boxed in the last 2 days as dealers reduced price pegs for major crude bands. At the London market, the Brent trades downward at $79, coming down by 56 cents. The OPEC basket crude steadies at $76 a barrel. And with that, it's a wrap on Business Nigeria. Thank you for your time. I am Yemisi Lanre Ido.